Welcome, everybody. I'm Michael Oso. I am the CEO of the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation, and I am so thrilled to be having this discussion today with Mike McCready, who is the lead guitarist for Pearl Jam and also happens to be a Crohn's patient and a longtime advocate and supporter of the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation. So thrilled to be having this discussion. And when we're done with this discussion, just make sure you stay tuned because you're going to hear Mike play a little bit, but first we're going to have a little bit of conversation, and I get to ask Mike some questions. So are you ready for some questions, Mike?
I am ready, Michael. And I also want you to know that I don't wear my sunglasses at night. I just was outside and they transitioned. So they will be transitioning back into regular glasses as we go on because I'm so vain. I have to say that right now. But good to see you.
It's good to see you too. So just for our listeners' sake, I think it would really be great if you don't mind sharing a little bit about your journey with Crohn's disease.
When I first realized I had Crohn's disease, it was, they called it Crohn's Colitis. It was 1986. I was going into a hamburger place on Melrose because I was living down in California at the time. And a friend of mine was in the bathroom, and all of a sudden I'd finished my meal and I had to go immediately to get into that bathroom. And I thought it was food poisoning, and I'm like pounding on the door and get in there, and there's just, blood and mucus and a nightmare, and not knowing what any of that is, it was very terrifying. I was 21, I was older, but it was still very scary. So 1986, and within about a week and a half, I went to a doctor and they said, you have ulcerative colitis at the time, or Crohn's. It's gone through different Crohn's colitis, Crohn's, ulcerative colitis definition. So originally it was ulcerative colitis. So they put me on prednisone and Azicol at that time, or Azicol. So that was it. That was my first terrifying journey with Crohn's.
So do you feel like you got diagnosed pretty quickly from the time that you first realized something was really wrong until somebody told you that you had inflammatory bowel disease? Or
I would say it was pretty quick, yeah, because I went into the doctor within, a week of that happening because it was not going away.
Yeah.
And that's what they determined at that time. I know that doesn't always happen, but they were right,
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
It's not always usual for our patients. More often than not, people are confused by their early symptoms, and it takes sometimes years for people to get a diagnosis. So I'm just wondering if you mind sharing some of the other challenges that you've had to face because of the disease. I think it would be helpful for our
I mean, certainly some of the challenges I've had to have are, having to have accidents, on stage, and, having the extreme pain playing in front of a bunch of people, and being in tour buses and traveling around the world, and, having to know where a bathroom is all the time, which we know is pretty impossible. So I've had like multiple accidents and just gross, bloody mucus poo accidents on stage. There's a lot of post-traumatic thought from it. I feel like I shouldn't be complaining about it too much because I look at kids that have it way worse than I do. And that humbles me, because that's the real test, is to really see young kids that have it and have to deal with it and go to school and be made fun of. And that's the part that really sucks in my mind. So.
Yeah. And it's true, as you say, there are people with varying disease. So for some it's mild, for some it's moderate, and for some, of course, it's very severe. But you have you have a very challenging work life, not just emotionally and mentally, but physically. And I'm just curious, how do you balance the physical demands of a job like yours and the challenges of the disease? Are there coping mechanisms, or does it get in your way?
It has gotten in the way over the years. When I'm in remission, which I luckily kind of have been for the last on and off for 15 years, I can talk very positive about how I'm doing, and like I will work out and I eat right and blah blah blah. I don't always eat right, but I try to. But if I'm in my disease, I'm a lot more dark and cynical, and it takes me a lot to get out of that. And that's why I need things like the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation, and people that I need to know that other people have this disease, and to get me out of that dark and cynical place that I can get in and when I'm in my disease. If that makes sense. Because when I'm feeling okay, you know, everything's groovy and I can do my tours and all that stuff. But when I'm not, I'm worried about it, and I have to, you know, I have to be diligent in terms of how I'm eating, how I relax, how I exercise, even when I'm in flame.
Yeah. So many of our patients, of course, they understand and talk about several things about the disease. One is that it's chronic in nature, right? There are no cures, so it doesn't really ever go away. Second is that it can be really invisible to people around you. They don't always recognize exactly the challenge that you're going through. But the other thing, as you're talking about it now, is that it's a little bit of a roller coaster ride, right? Sometimes you're in relapse and sometimes you're remitting and sometimes you're fine and ease back into your normal life. And right before you know it, a shoe drops. And so how do you deal with the roller coaster of it all, I guess?
That's a good question. It's a day-to-day thing, Michael, in terms of my psychology of it. I'm aware that I have Crohn's, and I'm aware that it could hit me at any time. And so along with that comes anxiety and some depression and things that I've had to, you know, deal with over the years and continue to. It's gotten better with the medications and being associated with, you know, Camp Oasis, to knowing Chris Adams, to knowing you, to, you know, and I can't overstate knowing the fact that other people have this disease and how they deal with it and how they use humor sometimes helps me. Yeah. So I can't overstate that. That's how communication and connection is how that helps me, along with medications, of course, and diets. Yeah. But I think that there's a level of humor and, you know, the races and the benefits we've done, and I've been able to be part of many things with Crohn's and Colitis Foundation. That has helped me get through those darker times.
That's fantastic to hear. And do you mind sharing with the viewers, because I'm not even sure I remember exactly how did you first get introduced to the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation? Do you remember?
Well, my amazing wife, Ashley, was finally tired of me complaining and about my, you know, my disease and how tough I had it, and, you know, and she was right. I was becoming a pain in the ass, pun intended, to her. And she's like, well, we need to go look into, see if there's some sort of organization so you can start giving back or find out if you can do something proactive and positive. And we looked around, and in Seattle, there was the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation at the time of America. And it was a tiny office in Seattle, and it had 2 or 3 employees. And we got to meet them and go into the office and talk about, hey, let's do a run. Let's be part of something, you know. And we met this guy, Chris Adams, and he's had it way worse than I did. And his attitude in having it helped me a lot, because he doesn't complain about anything. And he's had it way worse than I have. So that was an enlightening thing for me, Michael. But at any rate, those things kind of all happened around the same time. First thing was like, hey, let's do a show. Let's put a show together and raise some money for the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation, you know. And that was me and a bunch of friends, and it was called, we hadn't even named it Flight to Mars yet. And we did a little show at the Tractor, and then we did one. It got bigger and bigger and bigger, you know. And then I've done some stuff with Pearl Jam, and we did a show in Portland with them, with my band, to raise money for the organization. But to answer your question, it was out of me whining and being just, you know, irritating my wife, I think. Yeah. Which I'm sorry it had to be that way, but I'm happy we got into it. You know?
Listen, it's benefited the organization and the many, many patients that rely on the work of the organization. So this is just one more reason I am grateful to Ashley and to you both. I mean, this will be one of several times that I thank you during this interview for all the incredible things you've done for the foundation. I mean, you've just named a few of the many ways that you interact with us and engage with the organization, give back, raise money, help other kids with the disease. So it's just terrific. We really appreciate it.
I got to throw Chris Adams in there too, because he's part of that trifecta when we put these things together.
Yep.
On our end, that's the think tank is Ashley and Chris, And I'll bring the music and things like that. Do I have a question for you?
Sure.
Here we go.
All right.
Can you share a little bit about the foundation's mission for those who may be unfamiliar with it?
Yes, I would be happy to. So the foundation, we really have two core components to the mission of the organization. It's to cure these diseases, because as I said, there isn't a cure. And at the same time, improve the quality of life of patients as they go through this journey. So we invest in a lot of research in multiple areas, because these diseases are really complex. So they're going to require a complex solution to get to the right drugs and the right ultimate cures. So we're constantly funding research all over the country and actually all over the world. And at the same time, we know our patients are dealing with a chronic lifelong disease. So they need education, they need emotional support. They need our public policy efforts to make sure that the right laws are in place so that they get access to their drugs that they need, and all of the things really that help to improve the quality of their lives. So we do it in all those places. You know, we're in the midst of this pandemic, obviously. So we're reaching out and having conversation with people that are nearest and dearest to us, like you, Mike. And so I'm just wondering if you want to say a few words about what motivated you to help us out today and have this dialogue today.
You know, A, I love the organization. B, I think that, you know, in times of distress and in, you know, public uncertainty and, you know, I always harken back to, I just used the word harken. I can't believe that. Anyway,
Good word. I like it.
There's a great Mr. Rogers documentary, and when he was a kid, it talked about how when he was scared and he would see something on the news, his mom would say, "Look for the helpers." And that thing has stuck with me, you know, for the last couple of years since this thing has been out. But that's where I need to be. I need to look for the helpers. You guys are the helpers. I need to be part of that, because there's so much division and so much dogma and ignorance that is getting in the way of actual science and actual you know, people, the frontline workers that are working out there. So I just want to be I'm a part of science and help, you know.
I love that. You know what, Mike?
That's the point of life to me, you know.
Yeah, and I'd seen the documentary, and I love that documentary, and I didn't remember that exact line, but you're
Only
helping
in there for
me
a second.
remember. Yeah, it's a really powerful one, and it's great having this conversation with you today, because it kind of underscores the role that you're playing as a helper and how incredibly valuable that is. And so hopefully, you know, we're all trying to help in the ways that we can right this moment. Certainly Chris Adams and your wife and you and everybody at the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation. So.
For sure. What kinds of research is the foundation currently involved in? Am I just being too obvious in reading that? But that's
no, it's all good.
Okay.
Yeah, we're involved in a lot of different kinds of stuff. As I said, like these diseases, unfortunately, they're really complicated. And so it's taken decades to develop a good understanding for it. And so there's this incredible complicated mix of genetics, microbiome, and environmental factors. And so we're trying to support research and create discoveries in all those areas, because we know that some combination of discoveries in all of those areas is going to be where the real solution lies. As I said, two-pronged mission, right? So that's all the stuff we're doing on the research side, but you know, we know that we have to support patients along the way, and we know that they have several kinds of needs. One is just pure education. People, when they first get diagnosed, or they're having a flare, or somebody in their family gets diagnosed, or they're 10 years along their journey and things have gotten worse, they need all kinds of education about what the disease is, what treatments are available, how do they navigate the insurance system. So we provide education on all those fronts. But as you pointed out earlier, there's a big emotional toll that these diseases take on folks. And so we have to provide emotional support too. And we do it in the form of support groups, and now, especially with COVID-19, we're virtualizing all those ways that we offer emotional support. And we have an IBD help center that people can call Monday through Friday. We also have fundraising programs that really support the patient community, not just in the funds, but in the community that gets developed, right? And so you and Ashley and Chris have participated in some of these. Our Team Challenge program, you've run half marathons for us,
Yeah.
and through our Spin 4 program, indoor cycling, and all of these fundraising programs also offer a community where patients can come together and support each other. So.
And those are super fun too. From being able to be part of those things, I've gotten to meet so many more people that have had this and how they deal with it. And how, again, you know, running with people that have Crohn's, that's like, usually we're just running to the bathroom, but you know, in terms of like, those are all fun things that are important for such an isolating disease.
Yeah.
Because when I'm in my disease, I don't want to go out and do anything. You know, I want to chain myself to the toilet, you know, to be blunt. But if there are those opportunities to get out, like you're talking about, that's imperative for people's mental health and health, I think, as any
Absolutely. of those. And you know that these are diseases that affect children, sometimes very young children, as you know. And so we run this program, as you mentioned before, called Camp Oasis. There are 12 different camps all across the country. And they're specifically for kids with Crohn's and colitis. And you have visited and volunteered at Camp Oasis. So that's really important emotional support for kids.
In terms of, going to the first Camp Oasis, which is in California, the one I went to, the Painted Turtle, and just seeing how the kids were hanging out, and they all had some varying, you know, ulcerative colitis, Crohn's colitis, but they were outside and they were having water balloon fights and they were painting, and there were doctors that were close by. There was good meals. And then the thing that really hit me is when I went into the bathroom and I saw blood in the toilet, and I went, oh yeah, this is what this is about. Mm-hmm. That's the reality of it. And so I broke down in tears. And then after that, I was like, okay, I've got to be part of this somehow. What is this? This has changed my life, you know. That was the first time getting to see that in Camp Oasis in California when I went to the first one. It was amazing. Yeah. Changed my life forever, actually.
Yeah, it's wonderful to hear you say that. I'm so grateful for your support of that program specifically. And because we hear from the kids all the time that experience of being at camp with other people that are sharing the same disease journey that they are has been life-altering for them too.
And they make up jokes and they laugh about it, you know. And that's something we can't, as someone that doesn't have Crohn's or colitis, is not going to understand that, honestly.
Yeah.
I will understand that because, I mean, we can have empathy for our kids and our friends that have it, but if I don't have it, I don't know if I really understand what they're going through.
Right.
Camp Oasis allows that, to understand what all the kids are going through, I think.
Really agree.
Yeah.
So can we shift to COVID-19 for a second? Because I'm just curious how you're dealing with it yourself, and are there precautions that you're taking as you think about your own disease?
Yeah. But for what I've been doing, you know, is, you know, washing my hands, wearing a mask outside, wearing gloves. You know, I just touched my face right now, but you know, I washed my hands earlier. So so I'm trying to be aware of it, and you know, we're isolating as much as we can, and we are, you know, we're taking it very seriously. My kids are all in cyber school right now. You know, it's just, that's a whole new trip. Right before we started doing this, there's just a lot of chaos going on in the house, but it's what everybody's experiencing right now. So, you know, I'm taking it very seriously, and trying not to get too caught up on the politics and the news of it, because that's a nightmare. But staying on the side of science and logic and, you know, healing and finding the helpers. That's what I'm trying to do.
Great. It's sounding like you're taking really good care of yourself and your family. All of us that are fans and friends are just really glad to hear that. So
it's, you know, it's funny. We were supposed to go on tour this year, and it 3 days into us about to leave on tour, that all hit. So I can't, you know, there's certainly a lot more bands that are having it worse than we are. And I'm never going to complain about us not being able to. I'm sad that, you know, we can't go promote our new record, but there's way worse things in life than that. So it'll happen someday. We'll all be out doing stuff again, I'm sure.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just, we got to hang out until that time. I'm learning how to read music now, Michael. I've never done that before. I'm learning how to record music at home too. This is a guy that doesn't have the patience at all to do that. So I've learned some good things from this, I guess.
That's great. I love hearing that. Yeah. See, you're never too old, right?
How's it affected the foundation? You know?
Yeah, I mean, we're probably not so dissimilar to many other nonprofits, but like we're having this experience where there are opposing challenges in our world. On the one hand, our patients need us more than they've ever needed us before, and it's requiring us to pretty rapidly develop a whole suite of new education programs and emotional support and virtualize our Camp Oasis experience and our support groups. So there's more need than ever for what we're doing, and we've had to pool as much resource to care for people that are either battling COVID-19 on top of their IBD or even just concerned about it. And of course, at the same time, we are seeing a decline in fundraising.
Yeah.
Not surprisingly, as an example, we had 95 fundraising events around the country scheduled between April 1 and June 30th. And we've had to cancel or virtualize or move those to the fall. So there's a lot of fundraising uncertainty in our world.
Can you tell me about the virtualizing of any of those, just for my own?
Yeah. So we run a walk program, and all of those walks around the country typically happen in person. And so instead, what we've done for all the spring walks is we're having one walk on June 20th. We're going to post things and host everybody on Facebook Live, and we'll bring everyone together for some mission speaking and sharing some important information. And then we will leave people in their own communities to walk where they're comfortable. So do you have any advice for other patients, Mike, while we're having this conversation? Anything that comes to mind for you?
You know, the advice I would have at these times would be to reach out if you're, no matter what your, pun intended, gut tells you, to reach out to somebody else that has this disease, or go through the foundation, the Crohn's Colitis Foundation, to find other people that have this, or what are the programs are, because we're in such an isolating time. That's what this disease is. It's very isolating, even when we're not stuck on our computers talking to each other. You know, it's devastating. So to get out of that is to hopefully try to remain positive if you can. Talk to other people that have it. Try to find create something, you know, some sort of art, or do something you love. Learn something new. You know, I would say that to people that are stuck in places. We have all the ability now in the world through our computers to learn anything. So I would say, take this time to do that, you know, and to try some of the virtual programs out for, that you're putting on this year. I think do that.
That's
that,
great.
That will open up the communication. That'll open up the fireside chats. That'll open up your walk. You're talking about people will, you know, that'll help us that have Crohn's colitis. That'll help. That'll just help.
Totally agree. I think that's great advice. I appreciate it.
And so what do you want patients and caregivers to know during this difficult time?
Yeah, I appreciate that too. You know, first and foremost, there is a ton of resource available for patients and caregivers, more than ever before. And so I would highly recommend anyone who's battling these diseases, or anyone who knows anyone who is, please visit our website, Crohn'sColitisFoundation.org. As I said, there are COVID-19 specific resources as well as resources in general. So that's the first thing I would say. Or if you're comfortable calling our IBD Help Center, right? Patients should call our IBD Help Center. You can call us at 888-MY-GUT-PAIN, or email us at info@Crohn'sandColitisFoundation.org. Any one of those things will get you information and support that you probably need right now.
Right.
But, you know, we also need support right now, Mike. So for those, and we know that some are struggling financially, but for those who are not and can afford to, I hope you'll visit that same website and make a donation if you can.
Send in some dough. Yeah, I like that.
Good. So Mike, you said you were going to maybe play something for us today, and I think everyone would love that. Please.
Let me turn my amp on 1 second. Hang on 1 second.
All right.
Let me see if I can do that for you. Can you hear that?
I can definitely hear that.
Okay, so here's a little thing that I'm just gonna make up right now.
Thank you. Mike, that was awesome. That was fantastic.
I know I just said thank you. Thank you. I'll say it now. Thank you.
I appreciate it. That's great. And I know all the fans are appreciating it too. It makes us all just want to see you live as soon as we can. But.
That's what we're fingers crossed and masks on.
Yes, exactly. Or whatever it takes.
Hands washed.
We're willing to do all the above. No question about it.
Me too.
Mike, I want to thank you for the whole conversation, for the playing, for your honesty, and of course for all your support of the foundation over so many years in so many different ways. It warms our heart, truly, and it means everything to us. So I thank you and your wife and your whole family and Chris, and it's been wonderful. And I know you're hoping to raise some money for us as well. And so Mike is having his own fundraiser, and I think on the screen, you'll see either a link that you can click to learn a little bit more about Mike and make a contribution in his honor and help us raise money and continue all the wonderful programs that we're trying to continue. So I appreciate it.
You got it. Well, thank you very much, Michael, for your time. And yeah, whatever you need, I'm here for you. So
thank you, Mike. Hope to see you very soon. Be well.
Okay, you too. All right.
Bye.